so this is our hide. You usually want like something somewhat round. This is a round post that I grabbed. You can also, cat, no! Gosh, I'm telling you what, why does the cat have to go for the camera? Why? You can also use PVC, works great too. It's a little slippery, but it won't put holes in your hide. Where stuff like this, every little bump and divot can put holes in your hide. So you gotta watch out for that. Okay, this is what's known as a fleshing knife. Is kind of like silver skin. It's like a fine silvery white lining over the skin. It's basically between the meat and the skin hide. And for any sort of tanning you're going to do, you need to get that off because it acts as a moisture barrier in the skin to keep the skin from drying out, which works against you if you're trying to tan it. Okay guys, we have our barrel right here. This is actually an old pickle barrel. We can get these locally. There's a gas station store that sells these. Otherwise, I don't know where you would find them. You can use a Rubbermaid bin. I don't generally suggest putting it in a 5-gallon bucket just because you're not going to have a lot of space in that. So probably something a little bit bigger than a 5-gallon bucket. I just put this deer hide in there momentarily until I could tan him. Now, truthfully, he still has not been handled the way that you're supposed to handle a deer hide. I didn't salt him down just because I decided I was going to put him right into a pickle, but I didn't have enough vinegar on hand to make the pickle, so he had to sit in the refrigerated / frozen barn. And I think this is the first fresh hide that I've done. Fresh being used loosely. So my barrel, I filled it with 2 gallons of straight water. Now you're gonna add 4 pounds of canning and pickling salt. The reason you use canning and pickling salt is because it is much finer grained and it dissolves a lot faster. So we're just gonna dump this in. They say to use hot water, but I don't have any hot water and I don't feel like running to the house. So I'm gonna have to stir that with something. Now, the other thing is, the other thing is you don't want to leave this in a frozen barn. It won't freeze, but if it's a really cool temperature, it's going to have a hard time doing the, what is it, osmosis? Is that right? I think I've got my science terms mixed up. Anyway, the fluid moving in and out of the deer hide is going to be a lot slower if it's in colder temperatures. Now, if you're doing this in the summertime, put it in a shaded spot and it should be great. I've never had the luxury to do it in the summertime. So I'm gonna actually move this into the dog room where it's about 40 to 50 degrees. This should be okay for it, I guess. All right, so you get to look at me with my head chopped off because I can't put it somewhere to get close enough in the frame. Oh, here I am in the dog room, which is heated. Okay, so this is a wooden stick I used last year to do my hides. And I dumped 1 gallon of vinegar already in here. Oh look, there's my head. So I'm just gonna stir it around a little bit more. Okay, now I'm gonna add the last gallon of vinegar and then stir it around as well. The ratio is equal parts vinegar and water, and for every 4 gallons of liquid, you're gonna add 4 pounds of salt. And there were a couple different recipes for that online, so that's how you make a pickle for your hides. Now there's other ways to do hair on as well, but that's the most common method that I found. If you have another method to do hair on hide tanning, let me know. Oh, my battery's going dead. So before my battery dies, I'm going to put the last gallon in, stir it around, put the hide in, stir that around. Then you have to weigh the hide down so that there's no air bubbles and it's not sitting on top of the water. That part's the trickiest part, is just getting it to stay submerged. All right, and then for 3 days, 3 times a day, you're gonna stir this hide around, pick it up, squish it back down, make sure there's no air in it for 3 days, all right? Alright, so my battery died last night. This is what I managed to rig up after it died. The big key with soaking your hides is you want to make sure they stay in the solution, every part, period. Last time I did this, I used a series of large rocks and placed them all over, but the problem I had was that there were always pockets of air that kept trying to get up. No matter how many times I squished it and slashed it, there were just always pockets. So what I did, let me see if I can show you. I'm not excited to pick this up because this stuff is pretty potent. See the ring that it's leaving on this? It will actually start eating away the cement block. You can tell. Look, there's gravel right there. Oop. See the gravel? Yeah, definitely eating it away. But see, these are actually, oops, these are lids. And these are from maple syrup season. I thought about using a 5-gallon bucket on top. But the problem I ran into was that, as you can see, there's already little patches that are popping up around the edges. So a 5-gallon bucket, that's what you're gonna get, is little edges. So I used a series of these. It seems like high school math for some reason. We had, how many circles does it take to cover a circle? So yeah, I used a bunch of these. And if you don't have these, you could probably use, don't use metal for sure. Oh, now see, here's the problem, is that this looks like it wasn't even getting wet. You see that? It's because it was stuck on the lid. So I'm not sure exactly how good that solution was either. Ideally, if you've got, oh look, there's hair coming out of that, huh? Ideally, if you could use something that's perforated, like maybe you could, I mean, even if you put a bunch of holes into those things, I don't think that would do it. You need something with grates. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know people use sticks to kind of push all this down in there. So what we're doing right now is we are squishing it around. Now normally I have a rubber glove in here, which actually maybe I still do, possibly, from last year. One can only hope. Let's see, there's a trash bag from last year. My dog stuff. What's this? This looks like something. Oh, looky there. Aha! Check this out. This was all the stuff I used last time. Now these I use for processing venison, but these are great for holding on to the hide because your hands get fatigued and the hide might be cold, and so these help keep it warm, keep your hands warm. But these are what you really want. See how long they are? So I am going to put this on and set the camera up, hopefully so you can see this, and hopefully it won't fall into the solution. Blah! That would be bad. And now I'm going to reach in with my gloved hands, make sure you don't have any holes in them. And we're just going to kind of swirl it up and down and around. Now you're going to notice that this feels a lot stretchier. It kind of feels like, I want to say silly putty. You know how you can kind of stretch silly putty? That's what it kind of feels like. And that's good. That's what you want. The hide will turn brown when it's fully brined. The whole thing actually will turn brown. So we'll just see. Yep, it's looking pretty good. I'm just gonna check on the hair. Looks like the hair is staying pretty good. I mean, the belly's coming off, but we kind of expected that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit more vinegar in. I think the problem I had last time was that I didn't add enough, well, I didn't add any vinegar to the solution. When you stick the hide in, it's going to change the pH almost immediately. You want to keep the pH very low for hair on hides. So because the pH is changing as the vinegar moves into the hide and flushes the water out, you have to add a little bit more vinegar. I don't know exactly how much. You should be using pH strips. I couldn't find any pH strips anywhere that went low enough. So we're gonna pour a little bit of this in. That might be a little bit too much, but pretty much you're gonna start out with a lot, then you'll gradually decrease it as it stops changing. Because remember, the heights have water in them too. So after we swirl that around a bit, I used maybe a half of a gallon, probably less. So we're just gonna swish it around, dump it back down, pick it up, push the other end around. So now we're gonna start putting the lids on, and we're gonna start kind of stacking them on here. So that's where we're at. Now if you had a lid, you can put your lid on the top. We have everything tucked in there. You can see some of the loose hair floating on the top. Again, we're not worried about that. So it should be good for another 12 hours, and tomorrow morning we'll do it again.
cargoes make me nauseous, okay? I don't have a strong stomach with me.
Alright guys, so we have our finished dried deer pelt here. Now it's gonna look a little funny because the brains have actually dried on into the material. I don't think you have to put the brains in to dry it. I think you can just pickle it and then let it dry as long as you keep it flat and then brain it later, because if you don't get all of the membrane material off the deer, the brain won't soak through that anyway. So it could have just wasted some brains, or maybe not. I don't know. Let's take a look at it. So one thing you're going to notice is that there's a lot of discoloring. Alright, so let's point out a couple of things. Right here, this is all bruising from the original deer. Now this is where he got hit, most likely. Here you can see that's where the fur loss spot was, right there where you lost fur. And then right here on this particular side, this was the side I think that got hit. There are some holes in the hide right here. You can see these right there and there. And again, I think these are from when I was fleshing it. I was fleshing it too aggressively and it actually tore through a little bit. Again, if you're using a big wooden post, you probably want to sand it down nice and smooth so that you don't have little bumps and ridges that catch your knife. So if you're worried about these dark areas like right here and right here, don't be worried about it, because if you work them, now my guess is there's still a lot of membrane on here. You can actually see some of that dark stuff coming off. If you work at it and you scrape at it, mostly when it's still drying, and it's probably not going to change color right now because it's hard as a rock, but this was the one area I was doing a test in. I went through and I dampened it a little bit and I started rubbing it with a wooden spatula. You can listen to it. It's almost like a drum. If you want to make a drum, here you go. Ready to go. Now, why is this not soft and smooth? It's because I haven't gone through and softened it. It's in the hard stage right now. So here's the deer flipped over. It is definitely very, very wet still. I know some of you would probably suggest to actually pin it to some plywood to allow the back end to dry a little bit better. Now let's look at some of the other ones that I've done last year. This was the first one I did last year. Let's see, this one I skinned all the way down to the leg. You can see right here. And I cut up as high as I could on the neck. You can see how it's curling, especially the thicker leather. Now this one I brained, I think this one I did 2. Yeah, I did 2 when I did this one. And here's the tail. You can actually see the difference in the tail on this one. This one might have been a baby as well. You can see it's a lot less furry. So this would have been a fall deer. He's missing the very tip of the tail down here. See that? But I still flattened it out nice. It looks pretty. Definitely missing a lot of the fur. The fur in general on this, you can see the fur is a lot shorter. This is definitely a fall deer. So you have a tight, dense coat here on this one, and you have a long dog-like fur on this one. So if you're going to be making a fur out of a deer, do it in the dead of winter. The end of November, early December, late December, those are the great times to get a deer. You know, they've got all their fur. It's nice, it's long, it's beautiful. Now this type of fur looks nice too, but this is going to be more ornamental. It's not going to keep you warm per se. Now, I'm not exactly sure what went wrong with this one. Let's see. I'm not sure if this was one that I strung up or not. I think this one I tried to soften by hand over a board. And obviously it didn't work too good. Let's flip it over. This one's been under my son's bed. It's got crayon on it. But you can see, I'm not sure if I didn't membrane it well enough or if I just didn't brain it well enough. It's very, very possible that this might have been too wet when I put the brains on it and too wet when I first started to try to soften it. You can see it's got a nice light color compared to that guy. And that's just because I was rubbing it down. Here, it's a little softer, a little more pliable, but the leather here is thinner as well. The thinner leather is going to soften much faster than the thicker leather. That's just the way it is. So keep that in mind when you're trying to soften. And this is the entry wound. And over here, I think, maybe not, because I don't have an exit wound on that one. Alright, and then we have this one right here. Now this one I put in the same pickle bath as the other one, but it was losing a lot of fur. See all these, let's see the difference in color? This orangey color versus the darker color. As I explained at the beginning, these were all pelts that I had been saving for years and years and years and years. Well, okay, not that many years, like 5 years maybe. And at the time when I was saving them, I wasn't sure how to do it, so I just rolled them up and then put them in the freezer. Well, every time we moved, the hides would get moved too. Sometimes they would thaw, sometimes they stay frozen. So it's kind of questionable what sort of condition a lot of these hides were in by the time I went to tan them. This one is missing the tail just because I cut it off. Now you're wondering why he's so crinkled and banged up and scuffed up. Well, I was actually trying a different method of tanning the hide using a cement mixer. But it didn't turn out very good. So it needs to go into a different bath to be resoftened for buckskinning. Where's my buckskin? Ah. Now right here is the creme de la creme. This is my buckskin. This is the one and only buckskin I attempted to make. And then this one also, I think this one was originally put in a pickle bath with the fur on. And then because it was losing massive amounts of hair, I put it into a baking soda bath. And this is just amazing. I mean, you can see, sounds like rawhide, doesn't it? But look at this. Check this out. All this right here, and this is what you're looking for. This is genuine buckskin. It is soft. It feels like the world's softest flannel pajamas, especially down here in the really, really thin areas. Right through here. Oh, if you could feel this, then you would know why people tan deer hides. And this is a brain tanned hide. See how beautiful and white this is? Oh, it's just pure heaven. Now this one you can see I did string it up on a stretcher. The downside of putting it on a stretcher is that it will stretch your hide out of shape. So when it dries, it's going to be kind of funky shaped. Some people like it, some people don't. Now there's a crispy area right there. I'm not sure if I just didn't work it well or if I didn't pull all the membrane off. So it's got two sides. And the thing I didn't realize when this was drying was that you're actually supposed to work both sides. Yes, you work this side and this side. Now I was used to the fur on where you only work in the one side. And so that's the side I was working on this. Well, you're supposed to just work both. Anyway, oh, this is just fantastic. Now obviously, you can tell I rolled it up as soon as I was done. It's gonna retain this shape. Now is this ruined? No. You can go through and you can rebrain a hide again and again and again until you get it correct. Because the braining, it's an oil and it conditions your hide. So all we would have to do, you can see, like right here, this is basically like a drum material right here. So that definitely needs to be reworked. All we'd have to do is put it in a little bit of water, maybe some rain water, let it soak for an hour, pull it back out, twist it to wring it just like a towel. Buckskin is really tough stuff. So you're gonna take this and you can wring it just like a towel, squeeze all the water out, and then start softening it and just go to town on it. Watch out for the thin areas on the edges and watch out for any hole areas. Other than that, the stuff is tough as can be. Yeah, so that is my experience in tanning hides. Now, if any of you have ever brain tanned, specifically a hide, let me know. I know that Cabela sells tanning kits that are chemicals and you run it through the chemicals and you can tan it that way. I'd be worth trying out just to see what happens, but I think you still have to go through and soften it by hand just like you do with brain tanning. If you've tried the Cabela's way, let me know how it turned out for you and what you had to do with it. I might give it a shot. The brain tanning, it does have a distinct odor. It does stink, and it ran the family out of that house. But it produces a superior tanned hide from everything I've researched. So hopefully, at some point, we can turn these guys into some fabulous wearable materials. Take care.